How do you manage data for your cattle business? Performance Beef is a comprehensive technology solution, integrating feed, financial, and health information into one easy-to-use platform. Hear how it's helped Chris Urbanzik manage health data on his cattle operation.
Just keeping track of the drugs instantaneous. Guys finish at the chute, I can look it up at the office. Or if I'm at the house, I can look it up without having to call 3 people. I can see what cattle were doctored, if there was too many out of one pen, what's going on. We just got to be smarter with what we have.
Performance Beef helps Chris record processing data, enter costs, and track animal health history, all in real time at the chute. The mobile app also makes it easy to quickly log pasture and pen treatments on the go. Stop relying on pen and paper or complicated programs. Record data in real time with Performance Beef. Search Performance Beef online to request a demo and see how it can help simplify your business.
Well, with that, thank you for coming on the show today. And so just to get started, would you please talk about your background in the beef industry?
Yeah, I'd be happy to, Shay, and thanks for having me on your podcast. It's definitely exciting to be here this afternoon. For those listening, my name is Chandler Mulvaney, and I'm originally from a small town called Beauregard, Alabama. It's located just right outside of Auburn, Alabama, where the university. So if we've got any Auburn University graduates listening, then I'm sending you a warm War Eagle your way. But I grew up on a small purebred polled Hereford cattle operation in Beauregard, Alabama, and very, very fortunate to be a part of that kind of club calf environment by selling and then raising our animals to then end up in kind of that 4-H and FFA realms throughout the Southeast. So that's kind of how I got my start, and was very fortunate to have a dad who's also a professor at Auburn, who kind of started my passion for animal science and talking about issues and the world of advocacy. So from a very early age, I was roaming the halls of Auburn University and able to kind of get a larger grasp of the agricultural and science world at that younger age.
Would you please talk today about what your current position is?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So I recently started with the National Cattlemen's Beef Association as their Director of Grassroots Advocacy and Spokesperson Development. And we like to give some really long and fancy titles here at NCBA, but I'm really excited to help lead our advocacy program. So primarily working with our Masters of Beef Advocacy program and our advanced training for our what used to be called the Top of the Class program, working with our state partners, so those state beef councils, state affiliates, breed associations, and then any external partners. So whether it's other commodity groups or trade associations, working with them on providing some very general kind of starter beef advocacy training, all the way to spending a lot of intimate time with some of those top level advocates who go on to represent the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, either in person media placements, could be online, or on our own Cattleman to Cattleman show here in Denver.
Well, that's awesome. Would you explain a little bit about what the MBA program is? I know I've gone through it, but some of our listeners probably haven't. So
yes, no, I'd be happy to. So the Masters of Beef Advocacy, or the MBA program, started in 2009. And to date, we have a little over 19,000 graduates from across the United States. I believe Texas, Iowa, and Nebraska are actually our top 3 states with the most amount of graduates. So if you're listening in from Nebraska, then you can take pride in knowing you're right there at the top. But it was a program started initially to provide not only just a basic awareness of beef advocacy to consumers, but also provide that education and information to our producers about how cattle are raised, the different types of environments that cattle are raised in throughout the United States, and then just gain that information regarding how to talk to consumers and share information in sound bites, so 25 to 30 seconds, that really help create those meaningful and impactful conversations. So over the past 10 plus years, it's been updated several times. And right now we have what's called MBA Next Gen. So if you've taken one of the previous MBA certifications and haven't heard of MBA Next Gen, then you can go out and get recertified. A lot of the information is just simply updated with the latest USDA as well as NCBA talking points regarding beef production, climate change, environmental sustainability, the various topics that are discussed in the MBA Next Gen modules.
Well, awesome. Thank you for explaining more of that. I know I've gone through it like twice, like once in junior high, and then like once when I got into college, and I enjoyed it both times. So got a lot out of it.
Good. Yeah, it's definitely something I think, if you were to take it every 3 or 4 years, then it's going to be updated. So it's a good timing for you to kind of keep that in your back pocket and use it as a resource. And you can always go in and review the information that's in the MBA Next Gen.
Absolutely. So as we're talking about advocacy, that's something we're really seeing a lot of on social media. We look at these social media influencers and a lot of people who are spreading the message there, which is an awesome way to reach broad audiences. However, social media is not the best method for everyone. So what does advocacy look like outside of the social media space?
Yeah, that's a phenomenal question, and it's something that we talk about a lot during our in-person trainings with state level advocates and those community-based advocates within the beef community. So you're exactly right, Shay. Advocacy looks incredibly different from your position to where I'm at in my season of life, to a producer that might be managing a couple hundred acres or 1,000 acres. So it's important to acknowledge that and just understand that, hey, advocacy is different. And actually, during our advocacy trainings that I conduct at either a national or state level, kind of one of my favorite questions to ask, either in a group or individual activity, is, what does advocacy look like to you? And oftentimes it's really interesting to kind of hear the different responses, especially in today's climate, getting everything from, advocacy looks like activists, holding signs and marching for a cause, to, advocacy looks like writing a blog or sharing your message in an online format or making a series of posts on Instagram for, maybe it's counteracting some misinformation online. So it's really interesting just to see the different perspectives and the different lenses in which people view advocacy. So it's important for us to just say, hey, advocacy is different. And I love using my form of advocacy as someone who represents cattle producers across the country to go out and start those conversations with them and really invigorate and emphasize those starting points for producers.
So as you have these conversations and train producers, what would you say are some of the challenges producers face with starting these conversations?
Yeah, that is a tough question to answer for sure. I really don't think there's one specific, I guess, silver bullet to starting those conversations or overcoming that challenge. There's actually a quote that I heard recently from Norman Webb, who kind of in the academic world founded the theory of the depth of knowledge. And he says, we don't need to teach people more things, we need to teach people deeper things. And so I think when it comes to the world of advocacy, we oftentimes forget that there's a lot of information out there, and there's a lot of starting points that you as a producer or as a college student or whatever stage of life you're in, that really, if you kind of throw a dart at the board, you could probably make an educated guess and say, this is going to be where I'm going to start, and this is going to have impact for me, and probably be right. And so focusing in on where you can deepen your knowledge and grow yourself in that kind of sphere of influence that you have as an advocate. So whatever community you are ingrained in, focusing on that community, deepening your knowledge, and then starting to slowly expand that knowledge to other communities is just a really important starting place. And for a lot of our advocates at the state level who haven't even completed their master's of beef advocacy, or might be in college and looking for that next opportunity, the really biggest thing is just starting and taking that first step. Because once you do that, it might take some time, but you're actually going to have a little bit of traction, and it's going to be easier to take that next step.
Well, absolutely. And that kind of goes with anything, whether that's business or advocacy or any new talent or skill you're working to develop. You have to start and, well, pick what you want to start with and then start first.
Agreed. Yeah. And keep that momentum going. So.
Yep. As we look at advocating, what would you say are some of the do's and don'ts of this process? Because we want to make sure that we're being effective with what we're doing and sharing.
Yeah, that's a really important question, and one that I don't think we talk about enough. One of my favorite quotes that I oftentimes share in our trainings and just in kind of one-off conversations with individuals who are looking to get started in their advocacy journey. It's really focused on asking the right questions and focusing on the person at the opposite end of the table or the other side of the conversation. And so the quote is, it's not their job to understand you, it's your job to understand them. And so if we really put our focus and our energy on understanding the people who are there willing to have a conversation with us, then oftentimes we're going to have a greater opportunity to impact the movable middle. So those are the people that are people who haven't really made up their mind or finalized their perception of their belief on a particular matter. So specific to the beef community, those are the people that we can influence their buying habits or their purchasing habits at the grocery store, and in turn, potentially have them share some of their success stories or their insights as advocates in a different community or a different walk of life about beef and all the benefits it provides. So I really think it's important for us to put that focus on the person on the other side of the conversation. And so when we ask the right questions, we're building an environment of trust. We're showing that we care, and we're showing that we're capable, and not just being one-sided in our conversation and solely talking about all the great things or the impactful things that you've done as a producer or a member of the beef community. And so oftentimes it's important for us to recognize that emotions and that connection with people make more of an impact than just sharing sheer facts or your knowledge or information with someone. So start with asking the right questions, and I really think that'll help create some really meaningful conversations.
Absolutely. It's all about being interested and not interesting.
Yes.
So do you have like 3 to 5 best practices you'd be willing to share when it comes to advocating?
Yes. I think if you were to probably ask me on a different day, I might have a different answer. So there's a lot of really great tips for getting started on your advocacy journey. A few that I'll share for today. As you go out and start crafting that message, I really like to think about you as an advocate and asking the right questions. So if you have a journal or if you have a notebook that you like to spend some time writing some thoughts in, or maybe it's a Google document, just ask yourself some of the following questions. What story do I have to tell as an advocate? Go ahead and answer that question, and then ask yourself another, and what gaps or opportunities exist within my own community to make an impact. And those 2 questions can really help you answer just some of the basic opportunities that exist, the basic audiences that are available to you, even in your own backyard. So if you haven't started advocating, I highly encourage that you go out and find that audience, most often your family and friends, and share your kind of elevator speech or your initial story as an advocate with those audiences, and get some really critical feedback on what you could change, what you could improve, and then go back to the drawing board. And so as you continue developing your story, it's important for you to kind of talk in lists and talk in some bullet points, And so we oftentimes share that it's important for you to make things memorable and make your messages memorable. And so last week I was actually at the annual NCBA convention and trade show in Nashville, and I hosted a panel with two really amazing individuals, Kaya Twizzleman, otherwise known as Coach Kaya, and then Courtney Dehoff, who is the founder of the Fancy Lady Cowgirl movement. And so we were on the trade show floor, and we're sharing these really great messages, and they're talking about their advocacy journey. And Courtney made a comment that I thought was really, really impactful. And she said, when you're starting as an advocate, it's important for you to make your mess your message. And so even if your life is a little bit messy right now, think about those just really impactful, personal, authentic stories that you have to share, and just start crafting them out on a piece of paper. So I think it's important for you to just really understand what audience you're sharing that message with. And like Courtney said, make your mess your message.
Yes, Courtney has been on the show before, so she does an outstanding job advocating, as well as Kaya. I follow her a little bit too, both outstanding individuals.
Yes, they are awesome to follow and always posting some inspirational content. So go give them a follow.
Yes, very good at the connecting point, or the connection method.
Definitely, I agree.
So you've probably talked about it a little bit, and you have touched on it in other questions, but what would you say would be the main thing that we as ranchers need to improve when it comes to advocating?
Yeah, I think it really goes back to just asking the right questions. And so, I think a good spokesperson, a good advocate for the agricultural community really embodies kind of that selfless nature. And sometimes that's really difficult in our kind of, gratifying world and online world that we live in, where everything is instantaneous and based off of likes and comments and shares. But if you're asking the right questions, to me, that shows that again, you care about who's on the opposite end of the table, and that you care about their issues and what they're concerned about, and why they're even there in the first place, asking you the question. So first of all, I think we need to reach across the table and reach across that divide, and look for opportunities in our own community to share just the simple messages that we have as a producer, as a rancher, or as a college student about our story. And again, I think that will showcase it's us embracing that ideology that it's our job to understand them and to connect with people who are maybe a little bit concerned about how we raise our animals in a confined space, or the types of feedstuffs that we're actually feeding our animals on a daily basis. And then in turn, is that beef safe to feed my family? So once we make those connections in your everyday walk of life, it's important for you to actually start showing up. And so I think you've asked the right questions, you've showed that you've cared, and then once you're given that platform or that opportunity, even in your own community, that you start showing up at maybe at school board meetings, or maybe your district FFA chapter is having a meeting and they're electing officers, and you have an opportunity to go share your message. Don't overlook that opportunity to impact youth or young professionals in your community, and then seek out those chances to expand your influence. So I love getting involved with like the chambers of commerce, or going and making a presentation with your county commissioners, because those people who have a much higher level of influence in your own community, they're the ones that are making policy or really impacting change on a daily basis of what kids are eating in schools, to what's being taught in schools, to the information that's being disseminated to those people that are moving into your community. So the more that you can access those multiple touch points, I think those are oftentimes overlooked opportunities that we have not done a good enough job within the agriculture community.
Well, thank you for sharing those tips and bringing that to light. I think it is important, like you said, to reach out to, whether it is like county commissioners or those people making policy, sometimes maybe forget about those individuals and just how influential they may be.
Yeah, most definitely. And it's amazing, really once you start to kind of take a step back and you look at the communities that you're involved in, it amazes me, Shay, how I heard it last week. I think you're oftentimes just like 6 times removed from knowing someone either in the community over or maybe your neighboring state. And that same kind of application applies to other communities. So, food and nutrition or health, and being a strong advocate for the beef community can also mean that you can be a strong advocate for some of those partnering communities as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big world, but it's a small world. That degree of separation really isn't that large, especially if you look at your Midwest states. That's a lot smaller there. And the beef industry as well. It's very interconnected.
Yes.
So with that, is there anything you are excited about in the advocacy space, like in the future wise or just currently?
Yeah, great question. It's really tough to say. I think advocacy is always shifting and it's changing on a daily basis. So I always love just constantly educating and informing myself on, what are the latest, whether it's a challenge online or new platforms. And as you begin your advocacy journey, or as you're continuing to sustain those conversations, maybe as a top advocate in your own state, it's important to remember that advocacy is something that requires patience and practice. And so I didn't mention this earlier, but I kind of wanted to circle back around. I hope that's okay, Shay, but I'll make it all connect. So
Okay.
But it's important for us to, remember that advocacy requires practice and patience. And so I'm really excited for those of you that are starting or have already started. Just remember that if you're starting a new platform, or you've maybe kind of hit a wall on an existing platform, maybe it's a podcast or Instagram, just keep sharing, be strategic in what you're sharing. And again, think in those lists and making your messages memorable. And eventually you'll kind of crack through, you'll make that impact or cross that threshold of where you start to gain a little bit more traction or followers. So it's important just to be patient, and it's not going to happen overnight or maybe even in the course of a year. And so just remember that advocacy is always shifting. And so for me, it's exciting to see those kind of emerging advocates, and seeing my opportunity working for National Cattlemen's as a chance to be a resource and serve the needs of our producers who are wanting to get engaged in those conversations, both online and in person. And then I'm really excited for kind of expanding our partnerships and for leveraging our platform here at National Cattlemen's as the leading voice for cattle producers across the country. So we've got some programs in the work. I can't really share a whole lot right now, but we're excited to launch those in the coming year and really expand not only what we've continued to do over the past decade working with the Masters of Beef Advocacy Program, but continue to just, again, leverage our opportunities and make sure that we're offering the best advocacy programs for our producers and for consumers as well.
Well, awesome. So as we kind of wrap up the interview, you've obviously talked about the Masters of Beef Advocacy Program as a resource, but are there any other resources that you'd really like to share for these listeners if they're interested in improving their advocacy?
Most definitely. I would always love to share some resources. So I know Shay just mentioned the Masters of Beef Advocacy as a great tool. Again, just a quick recap, you can find all the information for the MBA program at mba.beeflearningcenter.org. And I highly encourage you to complete that. You can really do it in the course of an afternoon. It's a 5-module course. Each module is about 30 minutes, and then you get tested for what you learned and what was brought to your attention through that module. So that's a great starting point for any producer, any consumer who has questions about, maybe a gap in your knowledge about the beef community. And if you've completed your MBA, what better than to share that as a resource within your own communities? So that's a great way to start sharing some conversations on your favorite social media platform. Maybe create a series of videos or posts online and sharing that as a resource and the benefit that it brought you as an advocate within the ag community. Another couple of quick resources, BQA or beef quality assurance. If you're involved in the cattle producing community, or even if you're a transporter, or if you work in a grocery store as a butcher, anyone that has a touch point to really that supply chain for the American beef supply, I highly encourage you to go ahead and obtain that BQA certification. It's a little bit longer than MBA, but it's such a phenomenal program. And since 1991, I believe there's been over 300,000 certifications, and it's really one of the strongest programs that have come about as a result of the beef checkoff and a success of the work that we've done here at National Cattlemen's. So go out, get certified in both your MBA and your BQA. And then if you're a college student or even an aspiring advocate, another great program that is a partner of ours is through the Animal Ag Alliance. And they have two programs that I have actually been involved with and now kind of serve as a mentor. So that's kind of cool, coming full circle. But they have their College Aggies Online, which is actually getting started. And I believe applications are open up until the first part of September. So if you're a college student and you're looking for that chance to really cultivate those conversations, build a presence online, there's really no better place than to start there and engage with your peers in a really healthy environment. And then taking it one step further is that Animal Ag Allies program. And it's such a plethora of opportunities and resources of information. And that program is actually sponsored by Zoetis. It does require a fee, but if you're looking to kind of take that next step, it's a great place to start. And it's definitely helped me as well in my position. So.
Well, awesome. That kind of concludes everything I really wanted to ask you and have you share on the show. But if you have anything else that you would like to add, feel free.
Yeah, I guess it's been an absolute pleasure. And I told Shay earlier, I'm a little bit tired running on empty. I just came back from Nashville and we had a great week at the annual NCBA convention and trade show. And then before that, had a couple of trainings with some of our state beef council partners. So been running around like crazy this past month. But I would like to share, Shay, it's really important for those of you listening that if you're kind of questioning where to start and how to take that first step, by all means, contact me or contact your state beef council or cattlemen's association. Oftentimes, people such as yourself that might be listening and want to get started never actually follow through with calling the state cattlemen's or state beef council, and not enough people call and just ask, hey, I'm interested in learning or engaging more as an advocate. How can you use me? How can I best serve my state cattlemen's association? And I guarantee if you do that, you're probably going to get a very welcomed response, and people are actually going to want to maybe put you in a newspaper article or help out with a letter to the editor campaign, or have you come on and do a podcast show like Shay and I are doing today. So I highly encourage that you just contact those individuals at your respective state beef council or cattlemen's association. And if they don't reach back out to you, then by all means, I'm gonna drop my email. You can contact me at cmulvaney, that's MULVANEY at beef.org. And I'd be happy to put you in touch with somebody at your state level or community level, or even here at NCBA, and make sure that you have the resources you need just to get started sharing what's most important to you.
Well, awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And to any listeners out there, you can go ahead and reach out to me too if you want that sent to you as well. But with that kind of concludes everything today. So thank you, Chandler.
Thank you so much, Shay.
How do you manage data for your cattle business? Pen and paper or complicated programs? There's an easier way. Hear how Performance Beef has helped Greg Williams simplify his cattle operation.
Before I switched to performance beef, it was an absolute circus. It was a cobbled up pen and paper, didn't know where I was sitting, mess. I know on a day in, day out basis what my break even is, how many cattle I've lost, what my feed cost is. On a daily basis, I know I can print that report page and I know exactly where I'm sitting that day.
Cattle producers like Greg are saving time and boosting accuracy with performance beef. Are you ready to start?
For someone that's on the fence thinking about switching, just pull the trigger. It is a flat out game changer to know exactly where you're at.
Reduce the guesswork. Search performance beef online to request a demo.